What do you think about the election? 2 weeks away, man.
Trump should win easily, but I can't just mainstream media say, oh, they're only a couple points or they're virtually tied. I was like, come on.
Yeah.
Come on. And you know the thing is, people are just saying that I guess the most recent interviews, Kamala has been doing pretty horrible. Like I guess she did a town hall on CNN and CNN kind of pushed back a little bit and she kind of like
she couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
I mean,
the big news.
Yeah.
Big news. Tulsi Gabbard being an official Republican.
Yeah.
I've always been a fan of her, but like, I was like, yeah, can we really try? But then now I'm like, oh, she's full on board now. So she's one of my top contenders for the future. Like, even when Trump
does this, dude, she might be a front runner to be the first woman president if she keeps this up.
Yep. Like, I'm up to the point. Yeah. I'm up to the point that she could. We'll see, and this is why you have the primary. If she ends up doing better than Vance, I don't mind going.
You never know.
Yep.
Hey, Tui, Malo, welcome to the live digital kava session here on the Polynesian Eyes podcast.
Yes, sir.
Come on, come in, come all. We don't discriminate. If you have a digital, if you have a digital kava bag to throw and contribute, shoot it over. But Masi is following the kava from Aotearoa, but we'll get started soon. Welcome.
I got the water. Who has the kava bag? Who has the kava bag?
No, and that's the thing.
Just whatever can keep you ready for the podcast.
Yes. And, this is the thing that I've had a lot of people who were, jumping on the Ron DeSantis for president. And I was like, I was really, and this is one of the things I think less of Ben Shapiro because of this, because he was all like, oh yeah, if DeSantis goes in and he just does this and that, he will be light years ahead of us. Like, Shanna, I can tell, you're the nerd who just knows the facts.
Yes.
Just stick to what you know.
Yes.
Don't act like you know how the average person is going to react and how society is like there's a reason why you were in college at like 12 years old, right? You can't be that smart, and it's nothing against him. It's just the reality.
Reality of experience, practicability.
Yeah. Like when I would coach rugby, and I would tell guys, you can't be really good at something and be normal. Meaning you can't be like really good rugby player, really good business person, whatever, and be like super social skills, super whatever, because there's not enough time, right? You're spending so much time training, doing all the things to be so good, or studying if you're going to be like elite, that one of the things you sacrifice is sometimes you sacrifice social skills, right? Because you're sacrificing going in Eva and hanging out and talking for whatever. You lose that. That's part of just reality. You cannot be the best athlete in the world and got everything like Tom Brady and, be the smartest guy in politics. That's not how it works, because he spent all his time in football. Now you get into football, that's Tom Brady's specialty right there.
Yeah.
No,
that's a good point. That's a good point. It's just not enough time to develop certain areas of your life.
Exactly.
And you're only living, you're growing so fastly. You're trying to learn other areas, but then when you get to a certain point, that's your job. And then maybe later in life you'll develop it, but not at that time.
No. Yeah, not 100%. And that's why I think I watched this study one time, or this video, where they said it's impossible. James Bond as a character is impossible. And the reason why they said it is like, to be as proficient in shooting, driving cars, diving, hand-to-hand combat, like all those things, they're like, dude, one or two of those you spend a whole lifetime in, you can't get as good as that. So like you'd have to be like 500 years old before you'd be able to be proficient across all those skill sets,
Yeah. You
and
have
yet
to live
Jane,
long lives like Abraham and Moses if you wanna.
yes, you have to live as long as Tatu Imanua to be able. Oh man, yeah. One of the videos we're gonna watch today was pretty funny because one of our viewers was like a top comment at the very top, and we're
Mm.
gonna watch one of the videos. It's actually a pretty decent video about like Polynesian origins and stuff, but
Okay. Okay.
they kind of talk about some of our favorite topics of Lapita and coming from Taiwan and
Oh, nice.
Tangaloa,
Nice.
Tangaloa. Even within the video, Tangaloa and Maui and them being gods,
Okay.
which
Okay.
is it's fine. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with it. That's the common narrative, but that's why we
Yeah.
have the Polynesian Eyes podcast to
Yes.
give a little addition to some of those things.
100%. Of course.
All right. I think we're ready here. We're about 6 minutes in. We'll go through our intro video and we'll get
Go.
this live digital kava session going. Welcome everyone to another live digital kava session here on the Polynesian Eyes podcast. This is Tua Fale coming all the way from San Antonio, Texas, and we have Mr. Atearoa. Masi, how are you doing?
Not doing good, Tua. Beautiful weather here in New Zealand, South Auckland, Manurewa to be specific for all those New Zealand viewers that are listening in. Good weather, Saturday, typical Saturday for me today. Cut the lawns, did some cleaning here and there, did some laundry, and wife is out and about doing some errands. But yeah, other than that, pretty good. Typical Saturday from my end. How's everything in your neck of the woods in Central Texas?
Yes, it things are going well. Went to my first, I don't know if you've been to one before, Masi, like a hot pot.
No,
Mm.
what is that?
Okay. My daughter was telling me about it. Latu Tama, she was you know how you go to those Korean barbecue where you cook it in front of you? So it was
Yes.
the same place like that, right? It had that in there. And Malo MBM, welcome to
Yep,
the
welcome.
Polynesian Eyes podcast. Appreciate all the comments and the shares there, MBM Malo. Welcome. Atafu Wipu. Big full
Mm,
cup for you to get the day started.
yes, sir.
Um, so imagine how you do the grill, right? With the Korean barbecue, it's right there. You order your meat, but then you have like a stove with a pot with like you pick a base for the soup or whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
And you can get like miso, you can get like garlic and pork broth. It's a broth, right? And then they put spices in it, and then you can order meats and vegetables and other stuff and ramen you can throw in, and then you cook your meat and stuff in the hot pot,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can take it out and eat it. The same thing with your ramen and stuff. So I tried it out. It was okay. I think I'm still a bigger fan of the Korean barbecue.
Korean. Mm.
The biggest thing I really liked about it was they had talo. And
Okay.
so I ordered the talo to put it in, and I just put it in the hot pot to cook the
Mhm.
talo. And instead of eating the rice, I ate the talo with my Korean barbecue, and it was pretty
Okay.
good,
Okay. That's
So I
pretty
was
cool.
like,
That's a different
I told the girl I'm not a big fan of the hot pot, but I would pay the extra $5 because if you do both, you just pay an extra $5. And I said I would pay the $5 just to have the hot pot and throw the talo inside.
feature.
And so I could
That's
just
fair.
eat talo, and it was pretty good talo too.
Okay.
Right, and
Yeah.
that was an interesting experience.
Nice. That's pretty cool. What's the
It's
name of the
also
restaurant?
it's called K-pot.
Oh,
It's a
K-pop. Okay.
Korean, so it's a Korean hot pot. So when
Mm,
we went in, had neon lights
yeah.
everywhere. It had like
Yeah.
what's the Korean boy band?
Uh, what? Forgot the name. I have it like the tip of my tongue. I forgot, but
Yeah, that really popular,
it's pretty
right?
global. Yes.
Yes, they had them playing, and then all the coworkers were, wearing like anime stuff, and it's kind of cool,
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Loma, Loma, Malo, Malo, welcome. Yes. Oh yeah, where Loma is saying that Auckland weather is a bit like a hot pot. Is it pretty warm today?
Not from my area. It's been kind of windy here in my spot. Loma's more West Auckland, so maybe it's a little bit different there. But South Auckland, it's a bit overcast, but the breeze has been nice. It's been kind of nice and windy. So,
Okay.
mm,
Yeah, and then the other interesting thing when we were kind of touching on it in the pre-show was it's election season, right? My
yes.
wife was telling me, "Hey, it's early voting has started. Gonna go and get my vote in for Uncle Donald." Hey, what's
Yep.
up, brother Jason? Welcome, welcome. This is
Welcome,
my
Jason.
St. Louis brotherhood from the hills of Kalaipohaku.
Oh,
Appreciate it,
nice,
Jason.
nice.
Thank you for stopping by.
And I'll be going to the U.S. next week too, and also
Yes,
hopefully be there to celebrate the victory of Donald Trump. But that's the hope. That's the
yes,
hope.
yeah. So it's
So
definitely,
you and your wife,
yeah.
you and Chelsea already cast your vote, Tua. Have you guys
No, we're
voted yet?
going to. We were
Okay.
talking about it at dinner at the hot pot, and the Korean barbecue is like, yeah, we gotta go to the library, cast our vote for Uncle Donald, and we'll see. I mean, my first time ever voting was when Uncle Donald won the first time, my first time ever. And then the
Mm-hmm.
second time around, I didn't vote because I
Mm-hmm.
thought there ain't no way Donald Trump is gonna
Mm.
lose. And then obviously we know what happened in 2020.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't think it would have
but
mattered to us, so I think that was a good one to skip.
yes, but I'm gonna whether it matters or
Yes.
not, I'm gonna make it happen this year.
Yes. Make it work.
Hey, Tualau Malo, it looks like it's raining out there
Ooh.
in Wellington.
Loma is right. Looks like the whole country of New Zealand is just a mixed bag of weather right now. West Auckland's a different one. South Auckland different than Wellington.
Ay,
Raining hard.
yeah,
Malo
Maria,
Tua.
Maria, Malo Tua. Appreciate it.
Hey.
We'll be cutting up Tua's interview
Mm,
um, here in the next few, probably say maybe next week. And we'll
okay.
start putting out some shorts on the interview. Tua is our uncle and is an Olympian, had a tremendous accomplishment. Not very
Life
many people can
experience.
say they're Olympians. So we were pretty excited for that interview. Malo Tua. You going to say something, Masi?
Yes. Oh no, just for any US viewers that's viewing our program, don't forget to register and vote. Even if you
Yes.
feel like your vote might not matter, just go and vote. It's You have a part on building the country for the future. So, that's the main deal. So that's all. I just thought I'd just share that.
Yes, 100%. Loma says Auckland weather is mixed of humid, windy, and raining. Mega. Hey, okay, okay. Mega hot pot.
Malo Loma.
Masi was just sharing earlier before we jump in to some of the other things is Tulsi Gabbard, who was a
Yes.
presidential candidate for the Democrat Party, made it official, right? She made it
Hmm.
official that she's switching parties to the Republican Party. And if I remember correctly, she is part of Donald Trump's transition team.
So
So
there's
interesting.
potentially she could be in position for a cabinet position with Donald Trump, and you just feel more inclined, like Trump is very forward thinking on thinking the future. That's why he chose Vance. He's a nice solid young guy. Chelsea Gabbard can be in that position to be the future too, and I think she will be good to be on Trump's team, you know,
Yeah.
during this next 4 years if Trump gets elected. And not only that, Tua, I think Tulsi Gabbard was probably the highest Polynesian, let's just say, political
That's what
figure
I was going to say.
in America.
That's a
And
big
then
deal for
now,
Polynesians.
yes, and then now she's full on aboard in Republican. I was like, dude, this is somebody that we definitely need to elevate and get behind and support. So I'm excited for the future, actually.
Yeah.
With that, win or lose, but I just know we got good, solid people with leadership, and I just feel like they're good people. Everyone's not perfect, but these are good people. I feel like that at least you know they're on the side of at least trying to fight for good. So that's just my
100%.
perspective.
And they're willing to stand up even when it's not popular what they believe, right?
Yes,
And that should
yes,
say something. That should say something.
yeah.
Look, dude, man, Facebook is on fire. Sam, Taunga Kava, welcome to the live
Follow,
digital Kava
follow
session.
Sam.
This is like, typically, YouTube is our super active group here, but Facebook is making a good push early
Okay,
in this one. We got like 5 or 6 comments
and
in
we
a row
haven't
from
delved in
Facebook.
into our topics yet. We're just kind of
Exactly.
having a conversation. Yeah, nice, good.
Yes. Also have T Style,
Oh,
Malo
malo
Malo.
Tongan style.
Iyo, koen was kamatamasi he palu T Style.
Iyo,
And he
ko fe
said,
Tongan kava Tongan style. Go back we get that hina vai in. Toi pe kava ke hui. Paru.
see, and he says, as usual, T Style says Taufua. Oh,
Oh,
siya
tau
ko
fu.
T
Okay,
Style.
ay hanga tonu
I,
be.
I
Okay.
think T Style has been hanging out with the Fijians. The
Oh, wow.
Fijians like to have it Taufua all the time, you know? But
No,
Malo,
because he wants to ki kona fi kona vave pe a Tongan style.
Yeah, Tongan Style's in a hurry. He's on a schedule. He's gone on a schedule, but
Ari,
Malo Tongan
Ari.
Style. So, yeah, with that said, let's kind of get into some of the first topics. Masi, should we
Yeah.
pull up the
Whatever
highlights
order.
for the Matema Tonga, or want to just talk about it? I mean, what are your thoughts? Kind of give your analysis on. Let's just do that, because I think the
Okay.
last couple of times we've done I don't know what the
We get
NRL.
restricted?
Yeah,
Yes.
NRL is kind of a little too strict, man.
There's still small time, man. NRL, come on. You gotta. The only way for you to spread your product globally, you gotta let people share your brand and stuff. But there's still small time.
Exactly.
There's still small
Yeah.
time to that's when they did that. I was like, oh, there's still small time. Side bit. It's okay. But
Yeah, that's funny. But what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? It was 18-0. You watched the game, right?
yes,
I didn't
I
watch the
watched
full
it
game. I
live.
watched the
Yes.
highlights. What's kind of your analysis from your
Um,
perspective?
I still believe that we need to move on from Christian Wolf. That's just me.
No surprise there,
Um,
right?
Not surprised there. It was a very kind of slow start, but at the same time, I do understand that it was the team's first time to really get together and play. And even though they both had the same amount of time, the Australian team was constructed the same time with the Tonga team. They had the same amount of time. It wasn't like previous years, Tua. I think Australian team played one game before Matema Tonga had a game. And they played. This is before. This is the one before Tonga beats them. It's the one they had it here, Mount Spargus. I went to that game.
Yeah.
So, this was they started the same time and they practiced the same time. They had everything pretty evenly. So, um, that was fair. But I think you brought up a good point to him when we were having that conversation that most of the Australian teams already played together and they know each other's tendencies because they played together at the state of origin. So they
Mhm.
had a one up, 3 games in the state of
Some of those
origin.
combinations are very familiar with each
Yes,
other.
very familiar with them. So, Tonga did pretty well. If now that I'm reflecting on it, did pretty well for the time being. But I'm expecting a lot better and cleaner. A lot of them, I feel like were coaching mistakes. There were certain kicks and certain passes where I think it could have had more zip on it, like with
Yes.
when was it Lolohea kind of threw if he threw a much harder
On that
pass
intercept, yeah.
on that intercept,
That would have been
I
a
think
try
it would have
if there wasn't an
yes,
intercept. Instead, it was
yes.
a try the other way.
Yes. So I think those little things, I think that's kind of like this is my criticism for Christian Wolf. Those are the coaching stuff that you should come on. It's basic enough that you should correct in your time at practice. But I do hope he does step down after this championship so we can have another coach to actually
A
be
year
with
or
the
two
team
before the World
before
Cup.
the World Cup because Mate Matonga, we have a small window to actually
Mhm.
be together in place, and it's really important to have a coach there that understands the players and try to build some chemistry. So that's just my thoughts on that. But overall, I think for the first game, they did okay. 18-0
Not
is
bad. Yeah.
not too bad. I don't like the donut, getting a donut. I wish we got some kind of points,
Something.
but yes,
Yes.
it's
No,
not
that's
good to
fair.
get shout out. But those are my feedback to it. I don't know if you had anything else
Yeah.
to
I
add.
mean, now that my response now for Christian Wolf, if he knew he wasn't going to be here for the World Cup, then we probably should have made the move sooner, right? Like
before the
I was willing to be like, hey, he invested in us early, right? And kind of a way to be
yeah,
somewhat loyal and have a little bit more
and we're thankful,
patience.
and I'm thankful,
Yeah, and to be
for him for
thankful
that.
for that, right? But now that I'm hearing like he from his own mouth that he's going to be stepping down, in my mind I'm like,
Why you
well, if
not
that
doing
were
it
the
before?
case, maybe we should have had the coach that's taking us to
Mm,
the World Cup already coaching the team now. So
mm,
that's kind of my first thing. That's more of just a reaction to now that we know supposedly he's going to be stepping down. But if he ends up staying,
yeah.
okay, that then I'd be like, okay, that's good. Keep him through to the World Cup, and if we don't do well there, then it's time to maybe move on, like you said. Performance wise, I just watched the highlights. Defensively, from what I observed, and I'm not just talking about how Mole is like giant shot. Um,
Yeah.
I'm just talking about overall, just because the first half was what 6-0, and the
Yeah.
only try was from an intercept.
Intercept, correct. That's
So to
correct.
me, what that tells me is defense must have been relatively solid and consistent across the board. Um, oh Yahweh. Vaini Tacos in the house. Water Bears, the official
Water Bears,
PR
welcome,
representative.
welcome. Yeah.
Kautama, primary trunk or treat tonight. We had ours last week. We had ours last week, Water Bears. And is that rain check for the podcast tonight or rain check for the trunk or treat? Maybe the trunk or treat.
Yeah.
Ave fa naugen nau fia Water Bears. Excellent choice.
Mahalo Water
But thank
Bears.
you for stopping by, Toko. So yeah, so I mean, I think that, and then I didn't see it in the highlights themselves, but just some of the chatter online. Um, the Habs did not have a very good game. The kicking,
Nah,
the passing, which is a kind of a surprise because with Isaiah Katoa,
he's
um,
been doing really well with his club
with
team.
the team, yeah. And so maybe I was, and that's where I'm saying like the only thing I can think of is just not being familiar with each other,
Mm,
right? And not having those combinations more consistently, because he has the talent, he
yes.
has the game management capabilities. For whatever reason, it just didn't
Yeah.
materialize in the game. Same
Yeah.
thing with Lolohea. He's a
Mm-hmm.
veteran now, right?
Yeah.
One of the pillars of the team. It sounds like from some of the chatter online, he didn't have a very good game either,
Mm,
but not bad. 18 points against the best team in the nation, in the world, right? At halftime, in my
mm.
opinion, should have been 0-0, right? But we gave up that try. I'm like, overall, not bad. Ideally, would have loved to win again. Obviously, we all want to win, but trying
Mm.
to look at the cup half full than half empty, pretty grateful and satisfied. Tui Malo, how's Matema Tonga doing? Going. Yeah, well, that's what
It's
we're
going.
talking
It's
about.
going, Dewey.
It's
It's
going.
going. It's going. Well, that's the thing, right? This is during the time you're actually trying to figure out who's in your team. You're trying to figure out going forward because a lot of these test matches they're having now are just preparation on who's going to be the final squad for the World Cup in about a year and a half, two
Exactly.
years from now. So that's where it's going, Dewey. That's where we're going.
So no, 100%, 100%. Okay. Next one. We have some interesting updates. Another rugby update. Let me
Mm,
share this real quick. I think this is pretty dang cool. We were kind of one of our shorts that we just submitted on YouTube, a short video. We were talking about how Polynesians, and just talking about like Tulsi Gabbard, right? Kind of Polynesians punching above their weight. Obviously, this is big news, right? Here, Sionetu Pulotu will become the first Tongan and Pacific Islander to captain Scotland in rugby union, right? So this, I think his mother and grandmother are Scottish,
mm,
and he made the move. I think he was originally in Australia,
mm,
and then moved over to Scotland. Looks like he's had a pretty successful run there, and
mm,
really exciting. I mean, this is exciting stuff. Any thoughts on that, Mussy?
mm. No, it just seems like a lot of the European countries, Scotland. I think English had the Vunipola boys and Manu Tuilangi making an impact for them. The Welsh with that Faretau kid. making an impact. He's kind of been an highlight for them. Ireland had this Bundy
Yeah,
Bundy Aki guy, so it's fascinating seeing the teams up, the northern hemisphere recognizing the talent, and then now actually selecting
captain.
this kid to be a captain because that's a sign of leadership. So those are good. That's a good position for what's his name, Shione, to
Yeah,
take, and hopefully he does well, and I'll be actually, I'll put Scotland games on notice. I didn't put Scotland games on notice in
on
my
your
life to
radar.
try to see it, my radar to check out, but now it's in my radar, and I'll probably will follow up in the near future with the games. But yeah, how about you? What do you think of this move?
This is awesome. I mean, this just goes to further, highlight the fact that Polynesians are just flourishing around the
Hmm.
world, right? We
Hmm.
were one of our interviews with Tox Vale. We were talking about how Polynesians are WWE, New Japan World Wrestling,
Yeah,
entertainment. We
yeah,
talk about football. We talk about rugby. We talk now politics in the U.S. With Tulsi Gabbard
that's
getting in
huge.
there, and
That
then
is huge.
obviously, yeah, and then New Zealand. I'm seeing a lot of Polynesians. You know, I don't want to. I'm not trying to be offensive to the our Maori cousins because there's the Maoris and then they say the Pacifica, like they're not part of it. But and I guess I'm not just saying just the Maoris, but Samoans and Tongans
Yeah.
and other Polynesian groups getting involved in politics in New Zealand. I haven't seen a lot in Australia, but maybe there's a couple politicians in Australia. But just across, this is just really cool, right? Really exciting. Gives me another reason to, like you said, look at Scotland. Now I'm interested in watching Scotland. I mean, the Romanian rugby team has Tongans and Polynesians on it. It's just Australia, New Zealand, Japan, um, France. I mean, just every major. I think the only one I haven't seen a Tongan on is major rugby nation is South Africa,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And then
Yeah.
now with how good Argentina is doing, and maybe Argentina, but almost every other major rugby nation has a Polynesian on it, which is pretty
Yeah.
cool. I love this comment right here.
Shone Mactui Pulot.
Very Scottish name.
Hey, that's what we do. Just add the MG. There we go. McDuck, McDonald,
Yeah.
McNuggets. No, Tua. When you're talking about New Zealand on, the politician, and this is an interesting fact here. For New Zealand being one of the biggest melting pot for the Polynesians here in New
Community.
Zealand community. Did you know this? And when I say Polynesians, I'm including the Maori here. There's never been an elected prime minister of a Polynesian descent. Isn't that crazy?
What's the population percentage of Caucasian to Pacific Island?
I think they're like 60 though. 60. But when you
Sixty
put
forty.
60 to Palangis, but then like I think the Maoris are second, and then the Asians, and then there's Pacific. The Pacific. They call it Pacific Islanders, which is the rest of Polynesians outside of Maui. But if you put them together, they're the number two. You
Mm.
know, they're number two. But isn't that pretty surprising to me? When
Yeah, it is very,
2024,
yeah, with
they
the population
with the
numbers, yeah, for
population,
40%.
so they've always, yeah, it's never happened. So I just find that very interesting. They've always got picked the
Oh,
Caucasian and genders, but
Tui.
unless somebody knows that I'm probably forgetting somebody, but to my understanding, there hasn't been a Polynesian elect in the prime minister seat of New Zealand, which is pretty crazy because they always say New Zealand is pretty diverse and stuff, but I was like, there
Pretty
hasn't been
secular,
anyone.
right? One would assume the
Yeah,
Palangis would have conceded,
yeah,
with the PC and
yeah,
DEI and
yeah,
FYI. And
yeah. But
Tui said you forgot the most important group, your favorite.
the Indians, they're considered
Asian. Yeah.
Asian, so they're the
Yeah.
ones, but they're the fastest growing. I think they're the number one people who are actually migrating
To
to
New
New
Zealand.
Zealand. Yeah, I mean, and I brought my dad here. He noticed just the influx. There was a lot of the Indians from India. here. So
You
yeah,
know, when and I have a new threshold that you know that the Indians are a top um, ethnic group is when I was in England in London and I went through McDonald's, right? And I
mhm,
asked for ranch,
yeah.
and they didn't know what ranch was. I guess that's more of an American thing. And they said, "Oh, so what are my options?" And it was like ketchup and sweet curry.
That is pretty crazy.
That's when you
Hey,
know
that's worse than
that the
here. We don't
Indians
have
are
sweet curry yet
yeah.
in our
Well, that's
McDonald's.
what I was gonna tell you is when you have sweet curry as a dipping sauce at McDonald's, then you know the Indians are making power moves. They're making power moves.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
hey, Joji Harvea, welcome, welcome. Good, glad you're
Welcome.
able to join a live session. Um, yeah, once again, that's kind of cool that you say that. What comes to mind, Joji, is people have been asking for a schedule. I even saw it these last few days. A lot of people have mentioned on some of the shorter videos of the podcast of like, hey, want to make the next live. Unfortunately, this is just, it's just like when
Mhm.
we're going out and hanging out with your friends. You're just like, hey, is everybody available? Okay. Tawalo
Yeah,
siyo kakai. Sit on the road and just watch people. It's very organic, right? We haven't graduated to a set schedule yet, but who knows where the future goes. Right now, it's whenever we can, whenever Masi's available, whenever I'm available. We try to at least try and get at least one live, right?
yeah,
Every
yeah.
week. We did do some recordings last week on an interview
Mhm.
that we're, gonna edit that and get that out here hopefully in the next few days.
Part one. That
Um,
was a part one.
part one,
One. Yeah,
correct.
yeah.
Here's a couple other comments. Don't want to get too far from it. They ain't giving New Zealand up. No seat of power. Oh, okay. Oh yeah, way. Oh yeah,
They
way.
give
That's
it.
funny.
Yeah, no, because I'm just saying. To me, there's probably two things. It's either the Polynesians here are not stepping up to actually take the leadership. They're more taking the secondary one, or there could be maybe just giving them enough kikonga ma, just a piece of bread for them to be happy, satisfied, and then they take
Hmm.
real power. So those are my two presumptions there, Tongan style there. So with New Zealand politics here. So
Yeah, I think my presumption right now is there's not enough unity in the Polynesian community
mm,
to
fair.
consolidate the vote because I think you can peel off. There's enough Palangis who believe in DEI
Yeah.
that they would get behind it, right? In that ideology. But I think the Polynesians are kind of split. You have the academics
Mm,
who go to one side, and then you have more of the conservative
blue
group.
collar conservative. Yeah.
Yes, that are maybe lean a little bit more conservative. So it's a little bit more difficult to consolidate that vote. I don't know. I'm just
That's
guessing.
fair. No, that's fair. No, that's fair. I see that.
Hey, Nonsky, welcome. Welcome to the
Hello.
digital
Hello, Natsuki.
Kava session. Looks like but I'm sure I seen the Toko at my cousin's unveiling, Gloria, a few weeks back. I might be wrong. Not sure what that means, Nonsky. What's it? Is that did you go to Gloria or something? I don't know what this is.
No, I'm not too familiar. Give more
Context
information.
to that? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Not too sure. Not too sure.
Yes. Another one we can go to here real quick is we'll listen to Tua Tagovailoa. He came out
Ooh,
with a statement. Obviously, um, what you call he had his
coming back.
concussion,
Multiple
and
big concussions.
yes, and so he came out with a statement on his position on what he's going to do moving forward. So let's listen into that and just chime
I
in.
appreciate your concern. I really do. Um, I love this game, and I love it to the death of me. That's it. For me, this is what I love to do. This is what makes me happy, and I'm going to do it. I appreciate your.
There we go. Pretty
There
bold
we go.
statement, right?
Short and simple.
Short
Yeah.
and simple. I mean,
Yeah.
I think this is everybody's like, oh my gosh, we've gotten. I guess that's a byproduct of being so blessed in the way we live our lives that we and I guess we think that like everything is going to last forever and we have to be protected from everything. We have to control everything. I think this is another thing that comes out of being too secular and not being religious. When you have a religious mindset, you realize that everything is going to end. You're not intended to be alive forever and ever, and there's something else beyond just this life to live for, right? I think that's what we learned from COVID, is that over secular mentality and overly academic and overly like materialist kind of
Mm,
mentality, you
mm.
become like such a, I don't know if beta is even an answer for it. It's like a zeta, whatever it is, because you have this mentality of being so fragile, right? Of you can take no risk. Just
Mm,
just pick what causes the least amount of disturbance, and then it leads to a way of thinking and acting that just doesn't promote good things, right? It's a very negative way of viewing the world. So I'm pretty happy for Tua. I think this is a statement of, like you said, this is my life. This is how I want to live it. This is what I want to do. And trust me, there are other people who are doing way more dangerous jobs on a
yeah,
daily basis.
yeah.
And I think this is part of his religious conviction, right? Of him saying, it's like, Shana, it's okay, where this life is not supposed to be alive for forever. There's death for a reason. That's
Mhm.
kind of like my initial thoughts. Mussy, any what's your perspective on it?
No, I agree with you. Just let the man play,
Cool.
and if he passes away and dies, hey, it is what it is. I kind of compare it to the situation to of people who want to wear their seatbelts and people who don't want to wear their seatbelts. You know, it's just if you don't want to wear their seatbelts, but because it just makes you feel uncomfortable, you just for whatever reason you didn't grow up wearing the seatbelt, just let the person not wear the seatbelt. But of course, I just didn't wear the seatbelt because we could get fined. But this is Tua Tagovailoa. He already knows he's had this, I think, twice
Yeah.
concussion, really really bad concussions. Just let the man go do his thing and play. And it's just as a society we always try to. It's because we're living in a society that we think we have to tell people what's good for them, right? We have to tell people what's good for them, and just like government thinks that what's good for its people, trying to tell them what to do.
Yeah.
But let Tua Tagovailoa just play, and what comes, just
Comes, whatever
it
it
is
is.
what it is. Yeah. So
Yeah, you can
yeah,
get in.
my thoughts
It's
there.
more dangerous probably driving around in a car than it is for him to play football.
Yeah.
More people
Yeah.
die from driving in a car every day. But this is hilarious comment, Masi. Hey, Polynesian Prince, Malo, Malo. Polynesian Prince goes, Siana, he went straight away to the pass away. Masi, Masi will jump straight to the worst case scenario. Hey, Masi, that's how we're like, even if it's die, who cares? We're gonna do it.
Even though you could, if you get your brains knocked out of you or you get paralyzed, might as well go ahead mate. Yeah, go tarimate, be. You're not actually dead, Polynesian Prince. You're just waiting to be, waiting to be dead or something. But hey, that's just me.
Ay.
It's one of those. I think you're right, Dor. I mean, once you have that perspective that we're only here on this earth temporarily, you just try to
Once,
do
one and
what's right.
done.
Yes, one and done. You only have one way to do good work, because whatever you do is a continuation for the next one. So, hey, that's my thought there. Malo
No,
Polynesian
that's
Prince for joining us.
Mali. Rio, si Polynesian Prince. Masi, straight to the worst case scenario. I was thinking everybody was probably like, Masi's gonna say, oh, have a concussion, maybe have an injury. Hangatonu pe ate aroa ia to the point. Kapag te ke mate, pe ke mate ko osi ay beya.
I think. Well, and this is the thing, Tua. If you don't have a lot of, don't hang around with enough Polynesians that are very direct, a lot of them talk that way. So
Yeah.
I think I'm just like that Polynesian Prince.
Hey, Polynesian Princess, Fakaoshi ako may he knock out, hangatonu pe ke mate.
No, Polynesian Prince. This is the crazy thing about Tua Tagovailoa that I give him a lot of props. Yeah, or Maria, he's already done well, but it's literally just doing, and I think it's just that next step. He wants to try to win a championship. His team and his coach has probably been good, and management of the Dolphins have
Mhm.
been good to him. So he just like any other Polynesian kid. Once you get, they're very loyal, and
Loyal.
Tua Tagovailoa is displaying that because Polynesian Prince. That's why I said "Kabae mate be tangata," because he's doing it not because of the money or si tu Maria or si lau miliona tangata, but he's doing it because that's the love of the game.
Masi, once we get our t-shirt stuff going on, we're gonna make a t-shirt for Tua when we get a t-shirt, and it's triple M Mate Ma'a Miami.
There we go.
Eh?
No,
And
that's
that's
literally
literally
what
what he's saying, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, and that's the thing. And you bring up a good point, Masi, and I think this is one of the things that we do bring to the culture, right? And this is the thing that we do bring to the table is that loyalty and that dedication, because you're right. I mean, the whole reason why he got his last concussion, in my opinion, from observing, because I was watching the game, he took it upon himself to try and make something happen for his team, right? It was a
Steve
big
was down
game.
21 points. Yes,
Exactly. Anyone else who wasn't dedicated and willing to put it all on the line. I mean, right here, right? This is the T style. It's that's another T-shirt we're gonna
Tui
make.
Halafatai mode. There
The
we go.
Tui Halafatai mode right there, right? Where it's like, Siana, I could easily, pack my bags, throw in the towel. I'm gonna have tens of millions of dollars, whether I try to help my team or not. But that's what I believe that as Polynesians we bring to the table, right?
Yeah.
We have that dedication, that willingness to be loyal, and that self-sacrifice for a team and for your family and for your country and for your community. This is the same thing that we see. We've talked about it a couple times, Masi.
Yeah.
This is why Kahuku is what it is.
Yeah.
You could take the same talent, export that talent to somewhere, any high school football team. You won't get the consistent production and high performance out of that talent if it wasn't for the community and the culture and the investment of everyone in that Polynesian community. That's the X factor, right? That's what puts, that's what,
agree.
That's what takes that talent and just skyrockets it. And then you add certain traits like the Tui Halafatai switch, right? And then you're just like, money. These guys are willing to die for the state championship. And then you have players on the other team who are already like, yeah, I'm not going to die for my school. I got to go to college next year.
Yeah. What's my next college I'm going to go to? Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
What's my NIL deal I need to go to? Right. But it's really, really unique. And I think that's something special that Polynesians bring to the table. I'm really excited for Tua. Obviously, I want to see him succeed. I want to help him, keep him in mind. Hopefully he stays safe. I think he's looking at the Dolphins, like you were saying, Masi, you guys have invested in me. You've trusted me and a coach, right? McDaniels, who's invested. You said McDaniels, what's his name? McDaniels, right? He's invested in me. He's trusted me. He's built me up. It's because of that coach's trust and investment in Tua. Generational wealth is now in Tua's family.
Yes.
Right. And so that's something he can offer for his family. But hey, are there fights going on today, or are you just kind of showing? I'm a big Holloway fan, but hopefully
he is fighting.
Did he fight tonight?
No, I think it's this weekend. So it's my Sunday, your Saturday. So tomorrow.
Yeah, 100%. This guy I also love as well. Yeah. Right? You talk about that Tui Halafatai switch, that's dedication. Him. That's another guy who has that, right?
Oh, Max.
You remember that video we watched about Max Holloway where he's like, I gotta back myself. Even if I get beat up, I gotta back myself because at least if I back myself, I can live with myself, right?
Mm,
If I don't back myself even in a fight, then I'm a loser in my book. And I'm not gonna be a
mm,
loser in my book. I'm gonna be a winner.
yeah,
And he said that when he was like 15, 16 years old. And
yeah,
he's lived it out, right? I mean, that knockout he had with Gaethje,
yeah,
dude, everybody, no one's ever gonna forget that. He's already won the fight. It's kind of he did the same thing, kind of like what Tua's doing with Miami,
yes.
right? Tua had already gotten guaranteed money in the tens of millions. He could have just gone into the sunset, relaxed for the rest of his life, but he chose to. No, he pointed into the middle of the ring and say, "I'm gonna back my team." That's exactly what.
Tautolo. Oh,
Yeah, that's exactly what. Hey, Masi, looks like you've been training a little too much.
you know
Um,
the right hook.
and Max did the same thing, right? He was already winning. He could have walked away, but he's like, "Nah, we're gonna bang in the middle of the ring," and
Yeah,
he delivered an unforgettable product for the viewers.
that's legacy right there. That's gonna be playing for many, many years to come in UFC history.
Oh yeah, we Slick Rick, Malo,
Hey,
welcome.
Slick
See,
Rick, Malo, thanks for
all
coming.
nighter. See, yeah. We were going to Slick Rick, but then T Style said Taufua tonight,
Oh,
so we're gonna go Fijian style. Quick, quick hitter, right? Quick hitter.
one hitter
So
quitter. Boom.
yes, one hitter quitter because T Style said get Taufua he pony. So yes. Let's see. Mari. Anything else, Masi, on Max Holloway or
I
Tua?
wish him the best, man. I know he's fighting that Spaniard guy. I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure he's a Spaniard guy. I hope Max demolish him and give us another
Yes.
knockout, or just win. I like seeing
Knockout.
Max being, you know, raising his hand at the end of the fights because my man is authentic, and that's what the people like about Max the best.
Oh yeah, wish. The guys are thinking they saw some of your past, Masi, slipping out with the
Parafu,
slip
but
and the right hook. Slip and the
Polynesian
right hook.
Prince, it's only good when it's nobody at home. It's just me at home. I'm just doing. And then if I was acting like this, and then my wife would have said, "Stop pretending. I'm a pretender." It's okay.
Sarah would have said, "Hey, how to taufare o tafi?" Yeah,
No,
that's more useful. More
yeah.
useful to me.
And then go say, "Au tau tau e fo itu."
Yeah, we-
Yeah, man.
I was I can't remember who I think I was telling my wife this the other day. Some of my favorite phrases growing up with my grandma Piuela. And the one that always sticks out to me is when you just ask for something without looking. Eh?
Mm,
She would
mm,
always be like, if you just turn around and said, "Hey, coffee culo
mm,
for this," yeah, or
mm,
where's this, where's that, coffee
mm,
taufare,
mm,
coffee, whatever it is. Piuela would always turn around and you can tell she's like annoyed with you because she's like, you didn't even go look,
mm,
right? Like you don't
mm.
even try and look, you just get up and you ask for it,
Mm.
and she would go like this, go and go fafai. I don't know why. Like looking back at that comment now just makes me
Yeah.
laugh. Like, hey, when go fafai. How to taufare when go fafai. And I'm like, she's basically what she's saying is, hey, go and look for it first. You're just walking
Mm,
around like the broom is gonna come find you.
mm,
Go and
mm,
look. But
mm.
yeah, that's always a fun memory to get. Oh Yahweh, God loves you.
Hey, God
Malo,
loves you.
welcome.
Malo,
Good to
malo.
see you. Good to see you. Welcome to the digital live cover session. So, oh Yahweh, good memories, Grandma Piuela.
Yes,
That's good
yes.
stuff.
And that's a good lesson. Look before you ask. Common sense, eh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know what's another one that's funny that's coming back to me now
Uh-huh.
is whenever you would do something that like she's tired of like telling you to stop, or she would come up with something dramatic, right? Like
Mm,
like if we were playing with the paipavai, right?
Yeah.
and kind of let it run and flood the area. She's like, "Masi, ko'y pahinga mea na e poate vai o whakailo au. Awi au ki tori tori. Ko inga ko'y vare whanga moko puna mau e vai." You know, she would make it. And dude, when I was like 5, 6 years old, and my grandma said that, I was like, "Oh man, we're gonna get grandma in trouble. She's gonna get thrown in jail," you know. But we go, okay, go turn off the water. Don't waste the water, you know. But now I look back, cracking up. Grandma trying to get the message across. Don't waste the water. Her style was, tell them they're gonna throw me in jail, and I'm gonna go to jail because my grandkids are out here wasting the water. Oh man, I don't know.
See grandma. Yeah, definitely see grandma saying that.
That's good stuff. She's probably like, these little clowns. I'm gonna school these guys. All right. The next one is there's an interesting video on Tongan origins, and this was not necessarily by design, but I thought it was kind of hilarious because I really appreciate. I love the followers and the listeners and the viewers of the program, but I did think it was pretty funny to see Stan Reed 343 right here. And this is his comment on the video. I'll read it out loud.
Okay.
So this is a video on Tongan origins. And Stan Reed quote comments here. He says, "Mythology, my A. Westerners wrote our history and misinterpreted the word langi. When you say mythology in another way, you're saying our history is BS. Tangaloa was a man who lived on Tonga in a place called Langi. Tangaloa was a title and so was Maui. Hence, why we have Maui Kisikisi, Maui Atalanga, Maui Fusfonua. Our history goes back further than the dates you claim. Even the Ha'amonga is older than the Tu'itonga. Tangaloa clan constructed the Tu'itonga. Dash Tevita H. Fale." So I thought that was kind of cool, right? I mean,
it's pretty cool.
One of the things that are the drivers for this podcast is, we'll talk about all kinds of topics, but one of the fundamental things we're trying to say is we need to reconstruct our history, and there's a very logical and a very acceptable way to construct it by navigating our oral history together with the scientific knowledge and what we know of how civilizations come to exist. And by doing so, there is a lot that we can not only learn about Tonga's history, but also of Polynesia overall, and how, from our perspective, there was a unified Polynesian nation. There wasn't just some independent islands that never functioned under a shared government, social, political, religious, and scientific unity that united them, that we weren't just these random little pockets of people who settled islands and there wasn't anything unifying in a government or a political way. Any comments on that, Masi, before we go into just kind of watch the video, react to it? But any comments on that?
No, you gave a great explanation. The basis of this whole broadcast is because it's just to share our story on what are the origins of Polynesia, and then let the ideas compete, because I know there's other theories, many of them there in the world right now, and for our people in the 2024 still not know or have a consensus of where our origins are, like what you mentioned, Tua Tahiti, Hawaii, Samoa, right? New Zealand, they all have their different origin stories, but this is just an idea, and let it just be out there. And whatever idea trumps the other, so be it. And then we can all kind of come together and be one, because we were one before. But
not 100%. So let's watch this, and then if you ever want to stop and comment on something specifically, Masi, you can go ahead and do so.
The story of the ancient origin of the Tongan people is a rich blend of oral tradition, mythology, and archaeology, shedding light on the migration, culture, and development of one of the oldest Polynesian societies in the Pacific. The earliest known ancestors of the Tongan people are linked to the Lapita people, an ancient seafaring culture that is believed to have originated in Southeast Asia. Around 1500 BC, these people began migrating eastward across the Pacific, settling in various island chains. The Lapita were master navigators and ocean voyagers, known for their distinctive pottery, intricate designs, and advanced knowledge of the ocean currents and stars. Archaeological evidence shows that the Lapita people reached Tonga around 900 BC, settling primarily on the islands of Tonga, Tapu, and Niue. They brought with them agricultural techniques, fishing.
And we're going to touch on this a little bit, revisit one of the other articles, scientific articles on Tonga Tapu, but for more specificity, Nukuleka seems to be a very unique location on Tonga Tapu and throughout Polynesia. And we'll touch about that a little bit more in the article that we'll pull up on a specific farming technique that proposes the idea that Nukuleka was the actually founding Polynesian colony and settlement in all of Polynesia.
Skills and social structures that laid the foundation for Tongan society. Over time, the Lapita people in Tonga began to develop their own unique culture, which would evolve into the Tongan identity. By around 1000 AD,
one of the things I thought I wanted to mention here, because he talks about that evolved into the quote unquote Tongan identity, right? And I think this is where the idea of coming from the Americas and that idea of the founding identity of the Tongans, because something, in my perspective, is something singular event happened that led to that identity. And what is that identity, right? That's Hikuleo, right? That's the Tui system. That's the scientific knowledge that resulted in the Ha'amonga and
the ruins
and the
all over
ruins
yeah.
that resulted in that you really don't find very common in other areas. I am open to the idea that there could have been pre-existing people like the Lapita or whatever you want to call them, possibly on the islands and maybe other islands, and maybe some of them didn't have inhabitants. I'm open to that idea, but I also don't believe that they just developed this government system on their own. I think that was injected. If there were already people over there, this idea of mound building, of astronomical knowledge, of how to structure a government, religious precepts like hikuleo, right, and afterlife, that those are things that were injected into it. And that's where we say I refer to them as the founding fathers of the Tongan. In here, they say the unique Tongan identity. I say the founding fathers of the Tongan civilization are those people that came. That's Tangaloa, that's Maui, and the Taula. Those three clans that came to Tonga Tapu before they spread to other areas. Looks like there's some questions that may have popped up here. But have any comments on that, or you want to go straight to the questions?
No, I did have some just additional comments. I've mentioned it before. My question would be with the Lapita pottery is, what are they dating the pottery to be older, the ones from Southeast Asia, and they're the same materials, and then that's why they're doing that passage coming from Asia to the Polynesia? Because I'm thinking, when you're talking about people who are like, Tongan specifically, were traveling like at ease up to the 1800s, up to the late 1800s. If they were traveling so easily in that time, I'm sure there was a lot more traveling back in those times. And I'm just thinking they could have gone and brought more of those pottery back to the islands. I just don't know why. I'm trying to understand their thought process on why they're saying that wave is coming to, like, it was like in order, chronological order, coming that way, coming to Tonga. So that's my thing there. And also, the ruins are more related to the Americas. So I'm thinking the ruins and we've kind of saw some other videos of dating the Ha'amonga being much older than the Lapita
Yeah.
pottery.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of my thing there, because the people coming from Asia were not mound builders with Langi and also the Ha'amonga, because we would have seen those kind of ruins exist in Asia. But there's no
Yeah.
sun gate reading there. So those are my two questions, Tua. I don't know if maybe you can, if maybe they
Yeah.
have answered it, but those are my two
Two
answers to kind
questions.
of
Yeah.
my two questions I have regarding the origins from Asia. I do think, and this is my personal opinion, the original people came from the Americas. Then there was mass migration. Maybe people came after and they could have settled, or the original Polynesian people brought a lot of women and people, because we've done that with the Ha'amoa clan. We've done that with other islands coming to
Hawaii.
Wahatapu,
Yes. Yes.
Hawaii, coming settling, and we're talking about massive karias. I think it was the Tongyaki or the Lomipeao, I believe.
Yeah.
Massive boats bringing literally maybe entire villages coming over, and
Yeah.
that's why they probably brought some similar languages, and we could see borrowed languages from certain people in area, because you're talking about a relatively new people coming from the Americas, still constructing, mixing, and the women, whatever, coming from there, bringing their own
Yeah.
kind of culture in them. So that's where I'm kind of thinking that's where that mix came. But
Very
when we talk about
easy.
origin,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
talking about
No,
origin is those are my two questions I have regarding the
no,
origins
and that
of.
those are fair questions, because we can use this example, because a pottery does not, well, let's answer your questions. I think, to the best of my knowledge, they can trace the movement of those Lapita potteries in a sense of where they've been used and how old, with carbon dating
Yeah.
of certain things, right? What's unique in Tonga than a lot of the others, and we covered one of the articles that discussed it. In Tonga, there are potteries that come from like Southeast Asia, kind of Melanesia, but there are
Mm,
also potteries that are made in Tonga with Tongan clay that you
mm.
don't really find in a lot of other places. In a lot of the other places, it's primarily Lapita pottery from that's kind of like
Transported.
exported.
Mm,
In Tonga,
exported.
they found other options of clay pots that seem to be made out of local clay. So I don't know if that, not like you're saying, how could you be able to do that? Maybe they brought people
Mm,
that knew how to do that specific technology, right? And so, and a lot of the pots seem to have switched out when they started using underground cooking.
mm,
That seemed to be kind of like they've talked about. It seems like that's when the pot usage kind of went out of style, or the technology for it was lost, whatever you want to call it, and there was a transition into the underground cooking, and that seems to be one of the things that facilitate that.
mm,
and that's one of the reasons why, Masi, I'm open to whether there were people there or there were never people there in the
mm.
islands, because you could say there were already people there and the
Okay.
ideas got injected, or like you're saying, could have been the first people, and then because they were navigating, you're bringing people from all over, right? But one of the
Yeah.
reasons why they point to like the Lapita people, it's not just the pottery, but the Southeast Asian genetic material that you can find. But really, let's use a modern day example, and I think we've used this in the past. Imagine the United States
Hmm.
10,000 years from now, right?
Yeah.
And you find a site like Nukureka in the Americas, and America, some kind of civilization ending incident happens, and we're talking about 10,000 years later, the earth's repopulated and they're studying the Americas, and they find a location on America that's like Nukureka, and as they're digging, they find Chinese steel
Mm,
in this location, right? And then they can find Chinese steel in other areas of the world that originate from material in China. And then they say, oh, America originated from China. There we go.
Mm.
We now know, and you know what, to prove it even more, we find a lot of Chinese DNA in the people, right? And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden you can think, but then we live here now and we know, dude, that's the most absurd thing. The American idea could not be further from where the Chinese ideas of civilization, government structure, right? Economic philosophy. That's my biggest issue with that whole Lapita thing is they don't tell the ideas, where the ideas come from. And to me, that's more important. What makes
Mm.
America unique and makes the America the currently the only superpower in the world
Mm.
is the idea of America. And what's the idea of America? The Constitution, religious freedom,
Mm.
right? Capitalism. Those are things that you can do all the Lapita pottery testing in the world, and it won't tell you where those ideas come from.
Come from.
And so that's why for me, and I think for you as well, that's where the cultural history, oral history, the ruins, and
Mm.
the scientific knowledge, those things are evidences of the ideas that made the Tongan Empire or the Polynesian nation what it is or what it was. That like in this video says that unique identity.
Yeah.
And that's where we're saying it seems to point more towards the East, to the Americas, than it does to point to the West. Yeah, the cultural, the material goods could have come in from the West, but we're talking about the ideas
Mm.
behind it.
Mm.
And that's, and like you said, there's many ways to explain how the genetic material got there,
Oh
how
yeah.
the pottery got there, and you can answer those very clearly, very clearly. Do you really believe that Polynesians were the best navigators in the world and they were going all over the place?
Mm.
If you believe that, then you can easily explain the Lapita pottery and the genetic material that's found,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
No, it does. It does.
All right. If you want to read this question for us, Masi.
All right. Tongan style. Why do they never credit the indigenous people from those islands with all the knowledge and technology, but credit a made up type of people? Lapita. That's the question. What do you think, Tua? Good question,
That
Tongan style.
no, and that's the thing. That's a fair question, Tongan style. It's because I don't know how to say it, but Goishio Lalo, they think that the
Mm.
Western civilization is like the only thing that's, that can explain complexity,
Mm.
right? They can't sit there and say, and I like the word, the thing that you say it up is the made up type of people, because Lapita is literally a misinterpretation of a word in New Caledonia or in Melanesia where they said,
Hmm.
"Oh, dig here," and then they came up with the Lapita people. It's a
Mm.
Melanesian word for dig here, and that's what it came up is the Lapita, and that's the thing that's a very fair question. Is like the comment that was in there earlier is when you say mythology, you're discrediting the history
Mm.
and just say, oh, these people were just kind of not sophisticated. They talk about Tangaloa as a god and so forth. There's no way that they were that sophisticated. That's the only thing I can think of is science thinks it knows everything and can explain everything. And my thoughts are science provides some great things.
Yeah.
Technology, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing tonight if it wasn't for technology. But there's a lot of or science, but there's a lot of things that science cannot explain. And one of them is the origin of ideas by studying pottery,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
So, and they unfortunately found us when our civilization had degraded. And we can already look that Western civilization is suffering from degradation as we speak, right?
Mm.
You asked a scientific person 10 years ago, hey, can you tell the difference between a boy and a girl? Everyone would be like, dude, that's the silliest question in the world. But look at where we are now.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that's kind of my immediate response, Masi. What are your thoughts?
No, good answer to that. Tua. My thoughts are it's just this is a because when they have that theory of the mass using lapita and coming from Asia, you know this is a strong academic position. So this is, and they kind of have their circles. These academics, if you don't, and because they've all had the same theories, and they're not going to the indigenous person. And when I say indigenous, because we're talking about indigenous people, let's just say that did not go through the whole PhD
Hmm.
anthropology or PhD of indigenous studies or whatever, that they it is kind of what you said to it. It is like a look down upon. They won't take them too seriously, even though they're like families that's lived there and actually are caretakers, right? Who are very close to the source of information, and they're not part of the Western ideology of how origins are for indigenous people. And I think, and I credit a lot to you, Tua, because Western education has actually been wrong in a lot of indigenous history, the Mayan,
Hmm.
and even a lot of these things, because one, it's a different philosophy on how they even thought the world, their worldview. It's a lot different on how it
Exactly.
is now. Science is very good on what we have now because, like you said, Tua, science is a way of creating new materials and testing experiments and all of this. But regarding origins of history of a civilization, they tend to be wrong a lot because it's a different mindset and a different view. They're good for data and studying because you're trying to figure out dates and stuff. But
Material
regarding,
stuff. Yeah.
yes, material stuff and dating the time, but to understand the history and the idea of where it came from, it's very difficult. So yeah, I'm not trying to say that we're trying to say that the academic view is solely wrong, but just they're a lot of the, let's just say, our Polynesian academics, they don't do their own research and they just fall in line taking what people have already created the history of Polynesia. That's what I'm kind of saying there. But that's me.
Yeah. No, excellent. Tui makes a comment here. We kind of align with that. Believe Tongans came from South America. T Style has a fair question to ask. Masi, what are your thoughts on this? The findings in the Pacific are older than those of South America. So how then are we from them? Like he's kind of referencing, like the Ha'amonga being
Hmm.
potentially, right, tens of
Yeah,
thousands of years old, which would put it well back into the BCs. Any
good.
thoughts on that?
Well, and this would be my question too. I haven't looked because I know there is a Sun Gate, Tongan style, like a Ha'amonga period in Bolivia, I
Yes.
believe. And I haven't looked at the that structure on what's that dating there, if that's even older than the Ha'amonga or the same, or maybe like what you said, it could be newer. But a lot of that would be an interesting thing to look at because it looks exactly the same as a Ha'amonga, but built in the Americas, Bolivia to be specifically. So that would be my question to
Yeah.
find out on that Tongan style. So that'll be my dating on that with the ruins, especially the Ha'amonga in Bolivia. What's that? What does that tell us?
Yeah.
That's just
And
my
and
question to that.
no, and that's a fair thing. One of the and it could be maybe the dating in the Americas are off. Who knows, right?
Mhm.
And that's the thing. We take science with a grain of salt. As the technology gets better, the dating
Mm,
gets more accurate.
that's true.
Um, but here's another thing that to consider T style on top of the Ha'amonga, and if I remember correctly, it's no longer there.
It's
But
been
on the
weathered. Yeah, kind
it's
of.
been weathered away. At the very top of the Ha'amonga is a double V pattern.
Hmm.
And that double V pattern is found in the Americas and it's also found in Egypt, right? So that double V represents a knowledge of the equator, the tropics, the movement of the sun, um, that tells the seasons as it moves around, as the earth revolves around the sun. That same knowledge is tied to the Americas and to Egypt as well. Same astronomical knowledge. And that was carved on top of the Ha'amonga, right? Etched into it, and it's weathered away since then. But that has been documented to be something
Yes.
that's on there.
Yeah.
So yeah. So here's another comment from Tui. If you look at the Cook Island, Tahiti, there's lots of Tongan village names in those islands, and I think you've covered some of this as well. Like Bora Bora is Vava'u, right?
Yeah.
And it sounds like too he's saying there's other villages that have related to Tongan names.
Lalo isn't Lalo Tonga just below Tonga? I mean, that's its
Yeah,
other name, Lalo Tonga. If you just say Lalo Tonga, it could be a astronomical knowledge of it's just below
that
Tonga. So
location. Yeah,
yes, yeah.
100%. Easter Island is close to age, and there's a cave Anna called Kaitangata. That's Tongan. And that's another, yeah, I've heard some of our viewers say that. There's like tablets called Rongorongo,
Mm.
Kaitangata, and then there's what do they call
Tonga
it? The Ahu,
Eiki,
the
Ahu Eiki,
Yeah,
Ahu, something like
Ahu
that.
Tonga Raiki or something like that.
Yeah,
No, I agree, Polynesian Prince. That was a great question from T Style
yeah.
on that. Hey, Malo, Zo, welcome.
Malo.
Here's another position that Tongan Style says the Mayans came later to our ancestors. Very possible. I'm not against that either. T Style. I mean, I'm open to both options, whether there were people there or whether the first ones. There are, seems to me, at least from my perspective, reasonable ways to facilitate both of them.
Mm.
Let's
I could
see.
be. I'm also open to it that maybe some of the Polynesian islands had some people already on there, and maybe some came where the
Didn't, yeah,
origins. Yes,
yeah,
that's a
yeah.
possibility. That's a
And
possibility. Yeah.
really, this article that we'll look at, hopefully we get to later on, it talks about the farming technique that's
Uh,
called the pit farming, that is actually with areas that are low lying atolls that don't have a lot of fresh water, that it was kind of like a food storage. It was like a farming technique to maximize food production during times of famine or difficulty,
mm,
and that technology is what allowed settling of the smaller islands, right?
mm,
Because it allowed a means of developing a consistent food source on some of these smaller islands, that separating the seawater from the fresh water and protecting the crops were not always feasible. But
mm,
hopefully we'll get into that article. But we'll come
yeah.
back. So far, this video is not too bad. I like the pictures, the explanations. I mean, obviously we disagree with some of them, but they do a decent job in representing it relatively fairly.
Mm.
But we'll come back to the video, and it's doing a decent job here.
The Tongan society had grown into a highly organized and stratified society. Which instilled a strong sense of pride, divinity, and authority in their kings. Other gods and figures from Tonga.
Any thoughts? Anything kind of feedback on the overall?
No, I think that comment from one of our viewers that did on this video kind of explains the whole part of being the god and stuff. It's funny because I know the Maoris here when they say Tangaloa, they refer that to be the ocean, but you know how they say Tangaloa here being the sky, which
Mhm.
is right. This is the different. I think the Maoris are saying the Tangaloa being from the sea because I think that's where the first people coming, where Tangaloa clans coming maybe to settle um, New Zealand, Aotearoa. But yeah, nothing too crazy other than what's already kind of been discussed. I don't know if you had anything particular, Tua,
Yeah,
that you
one
want to
thing
discuss.
that kind of interesting, and I never thought of it until this guy. Well, first I want to say this guy does a pretty or gal does a pretty
Mm,
decent job of kind of
mm,
representing the history. Obviously, it's kind of off of the more academically accepted positions on Lapita and
yeah,
Tangaloa being a god.
yeah.
Um,
It's
but
a
the
little
one,
bit like it's a little bit in the fantasy, but right? It's the
yeah,
fantasy, the myths and um, lores kind of thing. But yeah,
yeah, there's two things I wanted to kind of touch on. The first one is the Tuitonga Empire. Everybody accepts existed.
that's
No
true.
one,
Yeah,
no one
yeah,
is coming out and saying Tuitonga Empire is made up, doesn't exist, blah blah
yeah.
blah. The biggest criticism that they can give of the Tuitonga Empire, oh, it's so young, right? That's how they try to limit the Tuitonga. Oh, it's so young, and the Tuimanuai was older and
Yeah,
started the Tuitonga, and then the Tuipulotu was much
was
older.
before then the Tui Manua.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then yet when we dig into the archaeological findings, number one, we can't find the Tuipulotu anywhere, right?
Mm,
Besides people's words. And then the Tuimanua, same thing. It's only 400 years old. But I did think that that's interesting. Just to put
yeah.
that out there. Why people get upset about it, why they fight against it. Everybody can believe what they wish to believe. The second part that I thought was interesting is, and I've never heard this idea until this video, but it seems to make sense when we're talking about a unique identity that develops.
Mm,
They say that they believe that they descend from a god, and that's what made them unique and view themselves differently.
mm.
Now, what other people or religion say they also descend or children of a god? Well, it's
The
Christianity,
yeah,
the Jews,
Christianity.
right? The chosen
Yeah.
people. So, and then we look at what guys like George Vason said, when he would observe the ancient Tongan
Mhm,
rituals, he would say,
mhm,
"Oh, a lot of these guys have a lot of rituals that are very similar to ancient Israel."
mm.
And so I'm just saying that because there are people who kind of like dismiss our position on Hikuleo
Yeah.
being the God, the same God of Israel as we say now. They're just kind of like, oh, you're making up stuff. I don't know. It's either making up
You're
stuff or
you're
you just
Mormon. You're
observe.
Mormon.
Yes, you're Mormon, right? And yeah, and all these guys, all of a sudden, they're like Mormon experts. All of a sudden, they're like, even the Mormons will laugh at you. First, they went from, oh, it's because you're LDS and you're a Mormon to, oh, even the LDS people laugh at you. And I'm like, oh, we went from accusing LDS doctrine to now you're a LDS doctrine expert. Anyways, but I mean, this is really interesting to me. Um, that that's an observation, and I think that's a fair observation,
Yeah,
right?
that's fair.
Is there is a connection and a descending from a god, and I think there, is that a smoking gun? Well, no, but I just
Mm,
thought that's an interesting point, that the idea of descending from God and being chosen by God or by a god was a unique identifier for these people, and I think that could
yeah,
be
that's
related to a
fair.
lot of different things to
Yeah,
consider.
that's fair. No, that's fair.
Okay, we'll
Uh,
come back to the
Well,
video
I
then.
was thinking,
What are you
too,
saying, Messi?
no, and that's another thing we can dive further. We've kind of talked about it before with who bestowed the name of Hikudeo being this certain statues, and that's why they were thinking it's a female. That'll be that that's something that we've kind of discussed because
Bring that
we
up.
don't
Bring that
know.
up. I think that's an important thing to talk about. They have these two
Yeah.
little figurines, right? So they
Yes.
found these little figurines, and then how did it become Hikuleo?
That's the question because we don't know who's like who put their name on that to say that's Hikudeo because it looked like a female kind of figurines and they're saying that's Hikudeo and then therefore Hikudeo is a female. When
Yeah,
I've always questioned like why are they thinking Hikudeo is a female when Hikudeo has always been literally translation is the tail end of the voice. So what made them lead to be that female? Kind of person or deity, and then we find out it's these figurines. They feel, and then we can't even figure out who the heck said that's Hikudeo. We don't know. So that's why we gotta. And this is like the funny thing, right? And this is why it's so important to have these discussions because people think, and this most likely will be an academic probably person that they feel like they know all of all the Polynesian history and whatever that they can be dubbed to give almost like when you find a new animal or find a new
we
something
can name it. Yeah,
there's no name on it so we're gonna name it but instead of these guys actually talking to people who are still alive they're just there they just don't want to work try to get in or they have no access to these people they just say oh let me just give a name because no one really knows anyway. So we'll give
yeah,
the name. We'll give the name unless only certain families or certain people will actually know. But yeah, that's just my thing, and that looks
yeah,
like everyone is falling in line saying because why do people fall in line and not really question is because they're themselves are not comfortable or don't even know the history of Polynesia or Tonga, and that's
yeah,
why they just go with it and just go. Okay, they have the PhD, so we give them the benefit of the doubt, and that's why most people
yeah.
get the PhD that
No,
way.
and
But
that's the thing that kind of gets interesting to me, right? Is there's nothing wrong if you believe in it just because the academics are saying it. You can say like, well, that's what the academics say, so I guess
yeah,
I don't have a reason not to believe it, right? But what gets funky to me is these people who listen to the academics but then they'll defend and die for it like like they had specific like revelation or something, or they saw with their own eyes that that was the truth, when in
mm,
reality they won't accept that. Like you're saying, Sampalangi found the figurines, looked at the first Polynesian, maybe if they even asked, and said, hey, what is this? And then some guy just wanted to be pau and said, oh, that's Hikuleo, because that's the most obvious thing that is not close to the truth.
mm,
And then the Palangi goes, oh my gosh, Hikuleo's a woman? Then they goes, that fits perfect with my feminism and my DEI. Everybody's gonna love me for this. Run with that,
mm,
right? And then that's what goes with it. And then, like you were saying, academics many times suffer from circular reasoning. And what do I mean
mm.
by that? We're going to talk about that Hikuleo one, right? So the
Yeah,
first person finds it, says it's Hikuleo, puts it in a paper, references how I got a first hand source who said it's Hikuleo, that it's a woman, and then 5 PhDs reference that one bad idea. Then it gets
mm,
circulated in papers, and then now every PhD is referencing it, and then everybody thinks it's true. Like that's the
yeah,
reality. But if you just dig a little bit more and you pay attention a little bit more, you find out,
mm,
oh, you mean someone just made that up? Just like the 6 feet
mm,
social distancing
yeah,
for COVID. We thought it was all scientific. Like there was, a measurement, a study that said if you're 6 feet away, you're
you'll be
protected,
fine. Yeah,
right?
you
Hitting,
wear
oh
a
yeah,
mask too.
yes, wear a mask. We find out later, Takoe, some guy sitting in a scientist thing said, I don't know. Well, we have to give them some kind of rule. 10 feet. They first started with 10 feet, then they settled on 6 feet. Why did they
Mm,
settle on 6 feet? No particular reason, no scientific data, but everybody in the world practice
fell
it.
in line. Yeah,
We fell in line and believed a bad idea that somehow that was gospel or law. just to find out later. Some scientist somewhere saying, "No, we gotta give a rule." What would it be?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that was it. That was it.
So yeah, so interesting,
Okay.
interesting.
Yeah.
Tongan mythology include Maui, a demigod who was known across Polynesia for his trickery and feats, such as fishing up islands from the ocean. Maui is also believed to have played.
And this kind of goes back real quick. Sorry to stop the video, but this kind of goes back to T Styles' question. That observation of the Palangi, where they're like, oh, they talk about Maui here, they talk about Maui there over long periods of time. Oh, he must be a demigod.
Yeah.
Rather than saying, well, there's multiple King Charleses in England. And, maybe there's, instead of saying King Charles the first, second, or third, they give Western civilization that benefit of the doubt. But when it comes to Polynesian civilization, it must be a figurative person, a figurative demigod, not a real person. Right? And it's just be like, oh, these savages. And I'm not trying to play like the race card or say we're some kind of like oppressed people. I'm just trying to describe how else would they come to that conclusion? Because all you had to do was ask a few more questions and you could have put together, oh, it's a title. It's a person. It's an actual person. If you just asked a few more questions. Anyways, my bad, guys. We'll let the video go a little bit longer.
Played a role in shaping the Tongan landscape. The Tua Tonga Empire reached its height between the 12th and 15th centuries. This empire was both feared and respected throughout Polynesia, with its influence reaching as far as Niue, Samoa, and Fiji. The Tongan kings used their naval prowess and diplomacy to create a vast network of alliances and tribute relationships. The capital of the Tua Tonga Empire was located in Mua, on the island of Tonga Tapu. The kings and chiefs of Tonga were buried in elaborate stone tombs called langi, which can still be seen today. These burial mounds were an important symbol of the power and divine nature of the Tua Tonga kings. During this period, Tonga became known as the Friendly Islands because of its reputation for welcoming visitors and traders from other parts of Polynesia. However, this friendliness was coupled with a strong warrior culture that defended Tongan interests and maintained the empire's territorial integrity. By the 16th century, the Tua Tonga Empire began to decline. Internal struggles, the increasing influence of other Polynesian islands, and external pressures contributed to this decline. As the empire weakened, the position of the Tua Tonga became more ceremonial, while real political and military powers shifted to a new line of kings, the Tui Ha'atakalawa. The Tui Ha'atakalawa ruled as the secular rulers of Tonga, while the Tua Tonga...
Not bad. Relatively accurate for,
This division of power helped to stabilize Tonga for a time.
Out of all the parts, this is probably the most accurate part of the whole video so far.
Control it once had. The focus of the kingdom shifted inward, with the Tongan people continuing to develop their unique culture, language, and customs. European explorers first came into contact with Tonga in the 17th century. Abel Tasman, a Dutch explorer, was the first European to visit Tonga in 1643, but it was Captain James Cook who made Tonga famous in the West during his visits in the 1770s. Cook visited Tonga multiple times and gave it the nickname the Friendly Islands, due to the warm reception he received from the Tongan people. However, Cook's interpretation of the Tongan people as friendly was somewhat misleading. According to Tongan oral history, there were plots to kill Cook and his men during one of his visits, but the plan was never executed due to internal disagreements among the Tongan chiefs. The 19th century was a turbulent period for Tonga, marked by civil wars and the increasing influence of Western missionaries. In the mid-19th century, a powerful Tongan leader named Taufa Hau, later known as King George Tupu I, united the islands under his rule. He converted to Christianity and worked closely with the missionaries to establish a Christian kingdom. In 1875, King George Tupu I established Tonga's first written constitution, abolishing the traditional system of serfdom and enacting significant legal reforms. He is remembered as the founder of modern Tonga, and his dynasty continues to rule the country to this day. The Tongan language, Lea Whakatonga, is a Polynesian language closely related to Samoan and Hawaiian, reflecting the ancient connections between these Pacific cultures. Tongan culture places a strong emphasis on respect for family, especially for elders, and has a complex system of social hierarchy based on kinship and chiefly status. Traditional Tongan society was structured around the Vahu system, in which sisters and their descendants held a higher status than their brothers, leading to a matrilineal aspect in Tongan inheritance and social order. Chiefs and nobles, particularly from the royal Tua Tonga line, were held in the highest regard, and this stratification of society continues to influence Tonga's social structure today. The ancient origins of the Tongan people are rooted in the broader migrations of the Lapita people, who settled the Pacific Islands and gave rise to the Polynesian cultures. Over centuries, the Tongan people developed a powerful and expansive empire under the Tua Tonga kings, deeply interwoven with their myths, gods, and legendary leaders. Even after the decline of their empire, the Tongan people maintained their cultural identity, blending ancient traditions with modern influences to become the vibrant society they are today. Tonga's history is one of resilience, adaptation, and profound connection to their Polynesian roots and the vast ocean that both isolated and connected them to the wider world. And that's the incredible story of the origins of the Tongan people. From legendary voyagers to a thriving kingdom, Tonga's rich heritage continues to inspire today. If you enjoyed this video,
Not bad. Not bad. I thought they did a decent job.
I would have said they should have that they said that because they kind of named Niue and Fiji. They forgot to say Uvea, Fortuna, all the way up to Hawaii because the empire was pretty vast, and
Mhm.
they did pretty good job that the whole Polynesian Tui Tonga Empire was headquartered in Mua in Tongatapu for the majority time, right? So no, that was pretty good. That last part was really relatively really good of all the parts that we've um kind of seen so far. But yeah, those are my thoughts there, Tua. I don't know if you had anything else to add on.
No, like you were saying, some did a pretty decent job. Oh yeah, where look who showed up from 7-Eleven today. Mari
Nacho,
and
Mari,
Nacho.
San Bernardino in
Welcome,
the
welcome.
Malo Lavambai.
Mari, Malo, Malo. Yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting.
Yeah,
Had some interesting ideas. I think did a pretty fair job. They just try to consolidate what's the most generally accepted ideas, right?
yeah,
And consolidated it. And I just love that, our viewers are
yeah,
not just listening, but they're out there commenting on YouTube and hopefully talking to everyone and say,
mm,
we have a more sophisticated and a richer history than the
yeah,
academic world and the Western civilization can even understand at this point. And we can just tell that story, get more people to understand it. And hopefully in the future, we'll see other creators make videos
yes,
on the history that we believe in, right? And that is connected to our oral history, connected to the ruins, and represents where we come from a little bit better.
yeah. And I was just thinking, Tua, like that viewer, because what I was saying, like when we think people who go have PhDs and they give their interpretation of what Polynesian history is or what it
Hmm.
was in the past, that they are capable now with all this information that as a step for us to like try to give the history of what we believe is the correct origin of Polynesia, that they have some foundation to do a comment like that, or at least ask
Yes.
some critical question. Because if you don't ask these questions, like I'm telling you, you'll be surprised. A lot of these PhDs, they don't really know. A lot of it is just a guess and estimated work that they're doing, and
Yes.
they're giving the benefit of the doubt. And if you don't, and that's the thing, a lot of people just let it slide because they're not knowledgeable or they don't even know what is the correct Polynesian history. So the more times people get share, it started off with Tevita Fale's work. This is just another step with this podcast to kind of enhance people's knowledge and understanding. And if you are uh, a fan and believe that this is the correct history, because we try to delve into different scenarios and questions, and we try to give answers of why this is our position, because it's pretty, we believe it's solid. At least it gives you something to at least be knowledgeable enough to ask those questions, be curious and say, why is it this way? because that's how we can get the best idea of our history rise
To
to
the
the
table.
top.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's all. I thought that was
Yeah.
pretty cool that one of the viewers did that, cited, and then just kind of left that there. That's what we want
Yes.
overall.
We want that. We want to get everyone to hear the idea and let the ideas compete for themselves.
Correct.
So that was pretty awesome to see the viewers comment on this video and also on social media. You know, I don't feel like we always have to respond to every comment that we
It's
get on
getting too
social
much
media.
now on social
Yeah,
media.
it's like it is a lot, and it's what makes it even more interesting, Masi, is
Eh,
the viewers are answering those questions, right?
That's
Like we don't
awesome,
have to
right?
respond to it. Kind of like this video.
In
The
in the
viewers are
beginning,
responding
yeah,
to it.
yeah, right. In the beginning, right, we had enough time. It wasn't many we could answer. Now it's like to the point we're getting questions from the TikTok and questions on YouTube. We try. I know you try your best to try to give, but like it's getting too much.
Too
And
many.
I'm
Yeah.
glad that we got enough people who actually understand our perspective and our origin history, that they're able to answer
Respond.
answer for them. But that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Looks like Nacho, we'll watch how long is that video? If it's not too long, we'll look up this video here. You said you sent to me on Instagram. I'll look it up and maybe we can respond to it. But
No,
go ahead,
Nacho's
Masi.
no, Nacho's right. I did see something when it's talk about the Tongan Empire, that there's even people in Vanuatu have stories of Tongans being there and the Tongan kava and everything, the influence from the Tua Tonga era. So like talking
Are you
about like, right?
sure? Are you sure? Because
Yeah.
I heard only the Tuimanua went over there.
Who knows?
I'm
Who
just
knows?
saying.
It was
I'm just
yeah.
asking a question.
Maybe they existed for that what 500 years and that they forgot. But who knows? But no, Nacho brought up a good one, because I didn't see the video of it. I think I just saw like an article and stuff, and I just read through it and I was like, oh, I mean, I always knew that Vanuatu was always part of the Tua Tonga kind of empire in a way,
Mm.
so I wasn't too surprised, but it was interesting.
Yeah, we'll pull that up. Oh, it's not a video; it's a post someone posted on. Yeah, we'll pull it up. We'll pull it up, Nacho. But oh no, that's good. We'll pull that up. The next one, the next video is, and this for all of those in New Zealand, this should be very familiar to you guys, and this is kind of like a viral kind of incident. It's been going on for a while. I've seen it, but this is the story behind the infamous mana wave. So if you aren't familiar with it,
I'm
this
not
will
familiar with
explain.
it.
Okay, here's the origin of the mana wave. So I saw it a lot with the Warriors fans doing it, and I was like, "What's that?" And it's like this new thing, but apparently it originates from a construction worker. So here we go. See? Oh no, wrong one. This one right here. Mana wave. So yeah, so this is kind of interesting. We'll look at the origins of the mana wave here real quick. Oh,
Okay.
let's see.
There's a new craze sweeping the nation, the mana wave. The viral greeting being spreading cheer along many East Coast highways as drivers contend with traffic from roadworks. So what's the secret to perfecting a mana wave? We sent Henry McMullen to find out.
We all know the feeling. You're running late with a long drive ahead and then bumper-to-bumper traffic through roadwork. But along the East Coast, stop-go workers are easing the pain with good vibes.
Mana waves is just giving everybody inspiration as they go past to keep happy, keep themselves safe.
Yeah, it lifts the water in us that are working out here and the public themselves.
One of the first things we noticed driving here in New Zealand were there with friendly workers, waving and smiling.
The latest craze, the mana wave, taking it to the next level.
So a mana wave, brother, is just something that's inside you. A lot of people see it as adrenaline or energy. Me, it's just my kaha and my ihi inside me coming out of me.
The move went after traffic controller Rama posted a video to TikTok, racking up 500,000 views.
Brother, when it blew up, brother, I wasn't prepared for what was going to come out of it. You know, I got random people all around Hawke's Bay looking at me like, hey, is that the Manawave person, you know?
But he's happy to share his work with the world.
Outstanding. It was beautiful to see how much people enjoyed actually watching a video of someone, you know, enjoying their job.
And a vape. And a vape. I love the vapes.
So, of course, I had to try my hand at it too.
What's the secret to a Manawave? Can you give me a good demo? I mean, yeah, what are we talking about here?
Pretty much just plant your feet as you would and then just throw it out.
Yeah, so it's kind of a plant and a shimmy.
Just a shimmy, and you can give it a bit of a witty if you want.
Getting any tips I could from the best in the business.
You know, the double winds and then the double whammies, you know, it's all over the place. The whole point of a Manawave is just to lighten everyone's day up, brother. So the more...
That's hilarious.
That is
Monday
hilarious.
mana it is, I guess. Yeah, it's just, it works.
Encouraging others to let their Manawave out and enjoy the holiday ride. Henry McMullen, One News.
Mussy, maybe you were inspired earlier and you were doing a Manawave earlier and we thought you were slipping in right hook, but you were just Manawave.
No, I'm more of the Shaka Brada style. I'm more of the Shaka style.
And even the
But
teaching
I like how New Zealand has created their own little, you know, Hawaii, we had our own Shaka Brada, and then New Zealand is the Manawave. There was a whole end. That's pretty cool. I had no idea.
Yeah, Mussy, Manurewa must be like isolated from the East Coast. You know?
Oh, man, maybe it's not too many Maoris here in Manurewa. It's more of the more with the Indians over here.
Yeah, I was about to say that. You've
We
been
roll
hanging out
differently
with the sweet curry people.
Ew,
The sweet
on
curry
my
dipping
side.
sauce. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting. Let me see if we can pull up Nacho's message here and pull up that article.
I think Tongan Style also put it up that they had their own list too of Tui Tongas. It was pretty interesting. I don't know how many they put up there, but yeah, it was I did remember going through that. Very interesting. No dates and stuff there because you know, I don't believe there's any langis there in Vanuatu, but it's interesting that they had their own list and how that was constructed. Be interesting. But I'm trying to think. They had another
So
name.
let me pull
for
it up here
Vanuatu.
real quick.
I forgot the name. I was thinking of.
So is this it? Is this what you? Oh yeah.
Sure.
So this is a Tui Tonga. Oh,
I'm only
showing
seeing
the wrong
your.
one. Right here.
Yeah, that's the one I've seen.
So legend and history, the origin of Kava and Vanuatu from Tonga.
Mm.
And that's the other thing too that's interesting is the uniformity of the term Kava with Polynesians, right?
Yeah.
In Fiji and Melanesia, they don't have a consistent word for it because there wasn't a unifying civilization or culture for that. And the use of Kava, and it's not just that it's the same name, but the recognition of Kava as a formal function and as a formal conducting of religious and political functions, right, or actions. So this is look at this. So that this is they're saying this is their Tui Tongas.
Yeah. 27 of them, but I'm thinking like that first one was interesting too. It says Tui Tonga Fefine dice Eiki or something. I'm just thinking, was that a Tui Tonga daughter that was given to kind of somewhere Mary in Vanuatu that had high rank and status to whatever? I don't know, but I just thought it was interesting.
No, and that's interesting, and that wouldn't be too out of their normal because you know the Tui Tonga's daughter or the sister of the Tui Tonga would marry to Fiji and to other areas, so it wouldn't be a stretch too much of a stretch. So it says Kataki pe awhaeren kai tala ne whanua ko Vanuatu a historia o Tonga. Vanuatu ne nautala ko e hako o e tui Tonga generation e te au wha ko e kau tui Tonga ai e hivaono ne mau honau hingoa pea ko e tui Tonga e whaavalu ne ikai ke nau mau e nau hingoa. So they're saying 144 tui Tongas, right?
Yeah.
And they only had the name for 48 of them. Interesting. E nau hingoa mo e nau tala ko e whakafuofua ko e tau e nimangeau nai ne purei ai e Tonga a Vanuatu. So you're saying that the Tui Tonga colonized Vanuatu longer than the Tui Manua existed. Okay. Interesting. I can't help it, guys. I can't help it. And I can't help it but bring it up because of all the comments, all the hate and the comments of like, you guys don't know what you're doing. And then we find out later, possibly Tonga was ruling in Vanuatu for longer than the Tui Manua existed.
Yeah.
So, okay. Kako hingoa pe eni o e kau Tui Tonga o ku asi he whakamatala ai kau toke tā Vanuatu. Are they saying that these are like academics? Oh, yeah.
It looks like it.
Mo e kau whekumi he malae o e eka tā me mika. So the academics. Ne whai foki ai kau Tui Tonga ne whakahingoa ai pe whetu ne nau purei I Vanuatu, which is a very common practice in Tonga.
Practice,
right? Yeah, that's where Tevita Fale was able to validate a lot of his Tui Tonga titles, right? Was langis and locations tied to events and names. I kai ke umau ki he hoko ka koe kau Tui Tonga pe eni o ku asi he tohi historia a Vanuatu. Mo e langi pe koe malae pe e niihi o ku keitoi. So there are some langis. So it says here, so it has the list here. Let's just look at some of the names, right? So we're looking at Tui Tonga Fefine Lesieliki, E Fate Tangaloa, E Mae Ifila, Tongariki. So look, so even like the Ali'i or Riki or whatever from Eastern Polynesia looks like that's even in Vanuatu, they're recognizing that form of the word. Tongoa, Nasa o Tonga, Namakula, Namapua, Mariki, Apure, Mariki Tapu. Wow, see some Ha'atakalaua.
Yeah. Tui Tonga Ha'atakalaua.
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. I mean, yeah. What kind of initial thoughts? Let's see what the comments are here. Any thoughts, Masi?
No, I just thought it's interesting. You know, this is something that we can delve into, and hopefully more information do come out. I just thought it was interesting, and I'm not surprised that Vanuatu was under the Tongan Empire, the Tui Tonga Empire, because I've always heard the oral history that it stretched up to Vanuatu, so I wasn't surprised there. I'm just looking forward for the new information that will keep coming out from this, just to learn more of how that was structured, you know.
Okay.
So yeah, it's interesting.
Hey, Nacho, que no foko whakakatai ku rea whakatonga. Malo. So it looks here, T-Style says, yes, from the historians and doctors of philosophy of Vanuatu, it was published. Wow. To the new archaeological dig sites coming out. Wow, very interesting. Very, very interesting.
All it does is just validates that you can't say Tui Tonga was not an empire. It just validates that Tui Tonga did have a form of empire in Polynesia or in the Pacific.
See, and that's the cop out. And that's the cop out that these other people who believe in the Tui Manua and the Tui Pulotu, the only thing they can say is, "Oh, we're so old that nobody's ever heard of us." And if they say heard of us, like they say, "Oh, even the Micronesia has heard of us." And then when I listen to the Micronesian guy, he's not saying that this person came and founded Micronesian islands or that came and ruled. They just said, oh yeah, he lost a fight to his older brother, and so he had to run away because he challenged his older brother. That's not an empire, right? That's running for your life.
Yeah. That's just
When you look,
just a time period that something happened in that timeline,
exactly. And then, but when you look at stuff like this, and appreciate it, Nacho, for sending this over. I mean, like you, Mussy, I've heard some stories of what they've done in Vanuatu, right? Gone over there and, got sandalwood and even killed some people there, blah, blah, blah. But now we're like, this is a prime example of what we've talked about. Oral history that is tied to ruins and some science behind it. Now we can say, oh, this is getting a little bit more like actual history. We're not just saying it's a story because we're now tying it to scientific data. That is what the Tui Tonga brings to the table that no other quote unquote empire brings to the table. Everyone else, Shana, I can sit in my garage and come up with another empire just by talking about it, right? What I can't do is make up ruins that have been around for thousands of years, and I can't make up scientific data like carbon dating for how old settlements are and so forth. And I can't make up a civilization that has maintained independence forever. Like those are things we just can't make up. Now, can I make up a couple stories here and there about how old it was? If anybody challenges my idea, I'll just go, no, it's just because this empire I'm talking about was before that. I was like, if it's so old, how the hell did you hear about it?
That's a good point, eh? It's too funny. Too funny.
So it looks like there's just some verbiage, and then we'll look at the pictures here real quick because it's interesting. I don't know what this text, it says the first ran for a canoe was being built in Tonga. At the end of the work drew near, the man had no food with which to feed the expert builders. All was finished. He took then his small son, Tuipania, put him in the oven and covered him up. When he was cooked, he opened the oven and sent the food to the builders. They looked, it was the flesh of a man. They did not eat it. They put their axes on their shoulders and left the work. This is like maybe an origin story or history. They took Tuipania and buried him. The shrubs grew the grave. The Tongans observed. Oh, this is the story of Kava. So the Tongan story is of a woman, but this one of a daughter, but this one's of a son. A rat, and it went to eat the shrubs and ate one, and the Kavan became unconscious and revived after it ate the shrub, which was sugarcane. See, look at this, the same story. The Tongans knew that one shrub was bitter, stupefying, or kona, and the other sweet, kara. They took the leaves in my notebook, the kava, and made it into a beverage. They proposed to give it to their chief to drink. Some man said, no, give it to the elders so that the chief may live. This was done, but the elders found it good. The chief then drank it also. This was the origin of kava in Tonga. It embodied in a dance and a song known as sakitasi. Really interesting. I have never heard of this before. The springing up of the kava, which stands there from Tonga on the grave of Tupupania, who was cooked in the oven. Tupupania was cooked in the oven. Interesting. Very similar story.
It is.
And so let's
more
look at the
evidence
pictures.
of the Tui Tonga influence in all of Polynesia. It's just over time we're just gonna learn more and things will just come out. What we've always kind of knew, that it was an empire and Tongan influence was everywhere in the Polynesian states.
This view shows the stone grave burial, cremated burials with arch above, resulting from decay of a log cabin structure built over them, caving in on the structure over charnel abuse and restoration of apex of primary mound. with its covering of ceremonial gravel. Interesting.
Mm.
Hey, look at that. Another Pulemele Mount. Not in Hamoa. Okay. Interesting. Okay. And then, okay, look, remember, Masi, we talked about the rock stacking technique. Very common technique in Tongan or Polynesian sites throughout Polynesia. This looks a lot like Ta'u Island, right, on the Tuimanua's residence that
like,
they did.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
go ahead. Wanted to go back,
No,
Masi?
no, I was gonna say, because that's kind of similar to the Manua in Vanuatu, right? What they're finding here.
Look like some bones.
Mm.
Oh, are they sure that's not Ufi? They need to double check that if that's a Ufi pit.
Make
Right
sure,
there.
make sure.
Very interesting. Oh, tama Vanuatu yako ni. They look Polynesian, eh?
Yeah, yeah. It does seem like Vanuatu seems like that mix, like a Fijian,
Kind of like
some
Fiji,
Polynesian.
like in the Lao
Yeah,
group.
yeah.
Okay, so looks like the Tongan tea style is pretty familiar with this. He says the guy who asked the House of the Nobles to review his findings is the researcher that published the article. This was him asking the nobles on any corrections. Just from now, okay,
Hmm.
okay, shit,
Good stuff, Tongan style.
dude, this is pretty awesome, man. No, this is Malo Nacho and Tongan style for the context, and Malo Nacho for sending this over. This is the thing that I find kind of funny, right?
Hmm.
And it hasn't been debunked yet. Every time we dig into the Tuimanu and the Tuipulotu, it either gets less believable or younger, right?
Yeah.
But then every time we dig into the Tuitonga, it becomes more believable and it gets older. They're talking about 144, and that's that they know of, right? Who knows? There could be hundreds more. We don't know, right? And so it's I don't know. That's fascinating to me.
It is.
This is why I love our viewers. This is why our guys are awesome, right? I really love seeing the information. It's learning. This is why I love doing the podcast as well. I learn a lot, right? I learn a lot from our viewers, and then the listeners. And then, it's great to see our viewers and listeners going online, sharing content, not just our content, but other content, and also commenting and just kind of sharing the history and really making a difference. I ain't gonna lie, there are some days, like even today, I was like, oh yeah, mahal alwa mohe, but sometimes no risk it, no biscuit. And days like today, I'm glad we stuck it out and had the program today. We tried to do yesterday, right, Masi, but schedules didn't work out yesterday. So we tried to make it work today. But that's what a great article to finish, I think, the show with. Is new information, not just a presence in Vanuatu, but consistent governance over long periods of times with ruins.
A mound, with tunnels inside the mound. Yeah.
So to me, this is awesome. And Nacho, Talaka 7-Eleven que sponsor podcast. Sponsor 7-Eleven and Mountain Dew. That's who we need. We need 7-Eleven and Mountain and a new mata for the show.
That's the new mata in America.
All right, Masi. With that being said, I'll give you the last word to close us out. We're coming up on 2 hours. Any closing thoughts, Masi, and then we'll go into our exit outro video. Any last comments?
No. Thankful for the viewers. Thankful for you, Tua, for this opportunity that we can just share and talk. Like you said, I did come across that article, but having a further discussion, I didn't see those pictures. Actually gave a good, let's just say, outlook on what that mound looked like with the tunnels. I had no idea, so that was very interesting. And the extra information from our viewers, I think Tongan Style provided some good context regarding that that article, and Nacho bringing it up in our podcast. Just thankful for everyone jumping on. Like what you said, Tua, it's when we're available. We're in totally different hemispheres, and we just try to do our best. But I appreciate the viewers for always being patient and also just following up with us. And if any more information comes on, let Tua and I know. We're happy to talk about it and just give our perspectives. And also, we learned a lot from your guys' perspectives and context regarding certain new developments in the Polynesian history. But yeah, I think you always said it, Tua. If, always ask the curious questions at all times. And yeah, that's for me. Unless you have anything, Tua.
Nope. As always, peace.
See you later, folks.